Okay, guys, welcome to the office hour. If you cannot make it, I will just do a lecture on that topic 1.1 and 1.2 on week 2 for you. This is all about the water and elements of life. I will start with the water and point out that the water molecule is super special. The water molecule contains one oxygen. Can you see that? One oxygen and one hydrogen atom at each side. Now, because we said, or you learned that in the periodic table, we just do the periodic table. As we go towards to the right, the electronegativity is increasing, as well as from the top towards the bottom. What is electronegativity? How strongly the atom holds on to the shared electron with another atom when they share a common electron pair. Now, the oxygen has higher electronegativity compared to the hydrogen. Let's see, there's a periodic table that tells you the electronegativity of the different atoms. For the oxygen, the electronegativity is 3.5, and the hydrogen's electronegativity is 2.1. So the difference between that number is 1.4. Okay. So now this is not part of the curriculum that much, but I want to point out for saying something like, what kind of a bonds do the atoms form based on their electronegativity? And we can go with that. If the electronegativity difference, these are really kind of not sharp exponents. Oh, that's really good. Electronegativity difference is between 0 till 0.4, that we will go with that. The bond between the two atoms is going to be non-polar. Okay, so let's check the one example. I will just move it like that. One example from the assignment, the carbon electronegativity. I have to check it, 2.5. So when we have the methane with carbon and hydrogen, the bond between the carbon and hydrogen, this will add up to 0.4. So we will say the electronegativity difference between the carbon and the hydrogen atoms is 0.4. So it's a non-polar, upper end of the non-polar, but still counted as a non-polar bond. On the other hand, when we go from 0.4 till 1, at this point, it will be a slightly polar bond between two atoms. If we go from 1 till 1.0 till 2, that is going to be polar bond, and higher than 2, the difference between the electronegativity between the two atoms, it's going to be ionic bond. So how are we going to test that? So let's say sodium and chlorine. The sodium's electronegativity is 0.9. and the chlorine's 3. The difference is between for them is 2.1, and for sure enough, it's an ionic compound, the sodium chloride. Anyway, this is kind of a good snapshot. What is that? How do we figure out what kind of a bond is going to happen between two atoms? So let's go back to the assignment, the apply assignment. I think it's 2.10, when I ask you guys to draw, what did I ask you guys? To draw two water molecules, and we are going to just recap that whole thing. Okay, two water molecules, one oxygen, and please pay attention. Water molecule is not like that. H, somebody just might just confuse H2O. No, this is not water. H, and the H is 2, and 1 oxygen. This is how it looks like. Okay, so this is not good. We have 2 water molecules, and this part is a little bit of negative, that part is a little bit of positive. Same in here. We have 2 ammonia, nitrogen and hydrogen, hydrogen and hydrogen. Again, the nitrogen is 3 and the hydrogen is 2.1. So the difference is 0.9. So it's a slightly polar, but still a polar molecule. A little bit of negative, a little bit of positive in here. Okay, slightly polar, but still polar. Another one is going to be here, nitrogen, a little bit, hydrogen, positive, hydrogen. I'm not going to put the signs in here. And I also asked you guys to put 2 methane molecules in here. The methane is carbon and hydrogen, but we said that the electronegativity between carbon and the hydrogen is going to be 0.4, so it's going to be non-polar bond. When the carbon and the hydrogen shares the electrons, they share it equally, totally. So here is one molecule, methane, and here is another molecule. Okay, so the hydrogen bonds, that's what I ask you guys to do. And here is a little bit of positive can go with a little bit of negative. So this would be one of the bonds, hydrogen bonds. We use dotted lines to represent that. Here is another one we can have here over the little bit of positive, a little bit of negative, little bit of positive here, and with a little bit of negative. This is 3 bonds, and this hydrogen probably can do that with this. And let's say, well, realistically, it's well, we can just do that realistic, kind of like this. This is going to be the hydrogen bonds. Okay, now, good. Now, so because of the electronegativity coming from actually, so the different electronegativity between hydrogen and oxygen and the polar nature of the molecule, we have special characteristics for the water, like the cohesive characteristic. Cohesive, that means water molecule combined another water molecule together, and they are going to form a water droplet. bugs can walk on the surface of the water because the water molecules on the surface still make a grid with each other through hydrogen bonds, connected with hydrogen bonds, as well as to the water molecules below the surface level. So it's kind of giving a harder surface for the bugs. The bugs, for example, in lipids, that they are non-polar molecules, they would not be able to walk on the lipid oil surface. The oil do not form hydrogen bonds, a weak bond, but still strong enough for the bugs to walk on. So we have another characteristic of the water is the adhesion. Adhesion means like the water molecule connects to another polar molecule, okay? It's not water, the other one, but another one, a polar molecule. Like the water, when you pour it into a glass container, a tiny glass, graduated cylinder, and you will see the meniscus. At this point, when we have the glass container, something like that, here we notice, barely can see that. So here is the glass container, very tiny. So this is the water inside, and it climbs up on the wall because of the cohesion, interaction between the glass and the water. If you would use a plastic graduated cylinder and you add water, you would just see a flat line for the water level because the plastic is non-polar instead of the glass, and the water will not climb, will not have adhesion to the plastic container. Also true, the adhesion with water and the xylem. The xylem is one of the vessel structure in the plants that let the water go high in the tree, for example. The another characteristic that comes from the polarity of the water is having a high specific heat. The specific heat means that how much energy do we have to add to a system to increase its temperature, So the specific heat is super high for the water. That is why it's interesting, like when you put a dollar bill in the water to soak it up, and you will put the soaked up water bill in the alcohol, and you will hold on the dollar bill and you strike a match and you let the dollar bill in fire, the alcohol will burn off super fast, but the dollar bill that was soaked in water, the water doesn't let the dollar bill to catch on fire because it needs to get warmed up, needs to get evaporated from the dollar bill. And having a high specific heat, that fire that is short-lived would not be able to evaporate the water around from the water bill. Also, water from polarity of the water leads into that the water moderates the climate. Think about a city like, okay, and well, at the same latitude, for example, here is the United States, something like this. Here is Florida, okay? So the lower 48, sorry about that. That's what I have to use. This is Florida, something like this. Okay, so here is Seattle. And here is MSP. This is Minneapolis, St. Paul. Now, this is middle of the continent. Seattle is on the side of the ocean. The summer temperature for Seattle is low because the ocean cools it down, but the winter temperature is high, relatively high compared to the Minneapolis, St. Paul stuff. So summer is super high and the winter is super low in here because in Seattle, the water cools down at the summer, the city, and heats up or just doesn't let it cool down so much, the temperature in Seattle. Now, from the polarity comes the expanding upon freezing. It's super interesting that the density of the water in solid state is higher. No, the density is so less dense. The density number is less compared when it's liquid. When it's liquid, is more dense. The particles are closer together because they are in motion, and sometimes they cross their boundaries and they get closer to each other because of the motion. But in freezing, those particles are far enough from each other. They cannot move that fast because of temperature, so their kinetic energy is slower, but they will not get close enough because of the hydrogen bond is between them. And the hydrogen bond is actually, the hydrogen bond gets them closer together, but the same ones, oxygen and oxygen, want to just go far away from each other. So they repel each other. That's why they cannot get close enough because of the polarity of the water molecules. That's why the ice forms at the top of the lakes, and now the ice not only forms a top layer on the lake, but also acts an insulator, so the life in the water will not die off if the lake is not super shallow, okay? Now, the last thing is about that the water is a great solvent. So many polar molecules can get dissolved, as well as the ionic compounds get dissolved in water. What we have to talk about also is the pH scale. Many of you guys are familiar what the pH is. Basically, the negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration in a solution. If I will use a line in here, this way and that way, that is going to represent the pH scale. So basically the negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration in a solution. We can say that this is in the middle, so this will be the neutral number 7, basically value for pH. That's the water usually. They have equal amount of in concentration, the hydrogen ion concentration and the hydroxide ion concentrations. They are equal with each other. Now, in here, the pH is low, but we say that this, for example, this is 1 on here, and low, this is when the hydrogen ion concentration is going to be super high, and we say that's acidic solution. On the other hand, we have the basic solution. When the pH by number is high, higher than 7, the neutral, but the hydrogen ion concentration is low. If we know that the hydrogen ion concentration is high, we can say that the hydroxide concentration is low for the acids, and for the basic, the hydroxide concentration is high, as well as the but on the other hand, the hydrogen ion concentration is low for basic solutions. What else we have in here? I think that's pretty much the water. One more thing I would like you guys to know, and this will be a little bit too long, but that's okay, bear with me, that organisms require carbon for their lives. So the carbon is very essential that they are present in many molecules. We call an organic molecule organic if not only carbon is present in the molecule, but as well as hydrogen. That is organic. Not the organic what you buy in the marketplace, kind of like that, but this is dealing with life. What we need to point out that organisms exchange matter with their environment in order to maintain their homeostasis, in order to grow, reproduce, and being an organism. Exchange the matter. We are talking about the basic matters and atoms, the carbon. How do you or me get the carbon? Well, we eat. We got that from the food. How does the plant get the carbon? It gets it from the air, from the carbon dioxide. How about the hydrogen? We need the hydrogen in our body. We eat, okay? The plants, they get the water. The water has hydrogen, so they got that. But now the question is, one more, oxygen. How do they get the oxygen? Well, they got it from the carbon dioxide. How do we get that? Well, I know that we breathe in. Yeah, that's important for the cellular respiration part, but we also eat, and also the oxygen can be combined with other atoms in a molecular form. But now let's talk about the nitrogen. Nitrogen is super important for protein. The proteins contain nitrogen, as well as the nucleic acids contain nitrogen content. How do we get? We eat. How do the plants get that? They get it from the soil. The nitrogen fixing bacteria is the bacteria that will fix the atmospheric nitrogen into breaking that triple bond, super strong triple bond, and make nitrate or nitrite that the plants can assimilate, bring it up into their bodies, and they will be able to make their proteins or amino acids and their nucleic acids, or nucleotides first to make it nucleic acid. Now, if you have a plant in a sawdust or hydroponic plants, and you will not give nitrogen to the water, the plant will not survive. Its leaves will be yellowish, and the plant will not be able to thrive, to live. The soil contains nitrogen, and we should not kill the bacteria in the soil, because otherwise the soil will not contain nitrogen, fixed nitrogen. Okay, we talked about nitrogen. The phosphorus where does the phosphorus come into our body? Well, why do we need the phosphorus? Nucleic acid contains phosphorus in a phosphate group. How do we get that? We eat. How do the plants get? From the soil again. Without phosphorus in the soil, the plant will not thrive. Now, think about a experiment that contains seeds in pot soil and seeds in or seedlings in sawdust. Sawdust is cellulose. We will learn about the cellulose is a bunch of sugar molecules right after each other, and because it's a carb, it contains carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But the plant living in an area with sawdust, cellulose only, will that plant be healthy? Will that plant thrive because of the environment? It can get the carbon, it can get the hydrogen, it can get the oxygen. That's fine. It's also from outside also, and you just water them, but it's going to lack of nitrogen and phosphorus that should come from the soil, and it's not going to make its own proteins and nucleic acids for long. So that plant would not thrive. So carbon is super important building block for carbohydrates, for the proteins, the lipids, and nucleic acids. You have that segments in your note-taking sheet. And it's super important. And nitrogen is used in the building blocks of proteins and nucleic acids, as well as we need the phosphorus for nucleic acid. I think that's all basically for 1.1 and 1.2. Let me know if you have any questions, and I would be glad to address that. Have a good one, guys. Bye. Okay, recording. Stop recording.